Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick. Give me a second here while I get this PowerPoint totally finalized. For those of you who don't know me, hello. We did a brief programming retreat for student organization leaders about a week ago. And for those of you who couldn't make it, we're going to do a quick recording just to try to get you some of that really good baseline information. So pretty much what we'll do today is we won't get to do introductions in the same way by any means because this is a recording, so I can't meet you, but I'll introduce myself. We'll talk about best practices for student organizations and some events, and then we'll also talk about COVID best practices. I think it's important that we're kind of sharing all that information with you. So selfishly, for those of you who have not met me, I want you to know a little bit about who I am. So my name is Patrick Fina. I'm a newer associate director in the Campus Leadership and Involvement Center. I started in November 2nd, I think was my first day. I utilize pronouns he, him, and his. I've lived in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Georgia, California, Illinois, and Ohio. And since so many of you are out-of-state students, I feel like you can at least hit me up and we can talk about Philly cheesesteaks or something, right? I have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Management and Protection with a concentration in Religious and Cultural Studies from California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo. And that's one of the most conceited sentences that ever leaves my mouth. I absolutely loved my time there, but I also loved working in education. So I went back to school and got a master's degree a while back. So I have a master's in higher education from Loyola University, Chicago. I've been working in college and university world since about 2012. So I've worked at a few different universities, have a lot of really fun experiences, and really, I'm kind of here to be your resource and your point person for student orgs, programming, traditions, you name it. A couple other things about me. I absolutely adore my cat. Her name's Monica. If you ever have a Zoom meeting with me and I'm taking it after hours or am working from home for that day, she'll likely crash. I also collect vinyl records. I play tenor saxophone. And I dabble in photography and printmaking, if any of those are things that you want to connect about. Before coming to Denison, I have done a lot of different student activity and student organization things. And so I'm going to share a couple of them with you, not to like humble brag, but just because I truly believe that as student organizations, you all are able to do so much more than you might think you are. So previously, I worked the first chunk of my career was working with social justice initiatives and doing LGBTQ plus student advocacy. But then I pivoted into working with student organizations, campus activities. And so I was able to bring Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black to a campus I worked on. I was able to bring Tan France from the Queer Eye reboot on Netflix, also to a campus I worked on. For anyone who's into alternative top 40, the band Against Me, Laura Jane Grace, their front woman, was able to work with her as well as a slew of local, maybe not huge known, but a lot of indie record label bands as well. Some of the more interesting student organizations I've been able to work with and support during my time. I had one that actually built a Formula One hybrid race car and was able to actually go and race it, which was a risk management nightmare, but we can find a way. And then the best way I can describe it is I also supported another organization that essentially built life-size battle bots. We're talking incredibly complex, pneumatic-driven remote control robots that would then go into an arena, and whichever one came out still functioning won. So that's the cool way to talk about what I do. The boring way to talk about what I do is I'm really here for you all as a resource when it comes to contract management, talking about risk management, but also talking about advocacy for student organizations. I like to share that the largest events that happened at the universities I came from were often done by organizations that only had about 20 people on their entire membership roster. And so I say that to say that with some good planning and some good event design, which is what we're going to spend the first little chunk of today on, you all are able to achieve quite a bit regardless of your size or numbers. So today we'll talk about event design. I've got a little event planning sheet I like to use. We're going to talk about money because I know a lot of people probably have questions about that. Then we'll also talk about transitioning your organizations because while it is only February, it's something you should also be getting prepared for. So first things first, let's talk about how to do a really good event. So many of the things that you are doing as student organizations are based in events or programs. And even if what you're doing is kind of repetitive and doesn't necessarily follow a one-off formula, you can borrow a lot of this for different parts of student organization business. So we're going to talk about my favorite framework for all of this, which is the Moritz 8 states of an event. And there's also 3 kind of themes within that. You have some states that are pre-event, some states that are during your event, and some states that are post-event. And this is a really cool framework just to think about from really kind of any direction for organization business. So number one, announcing. This is when you actually announce that you're going to do an event, you're going to do a program, you're going to capture attention. I like to talk about this because so often we think sending out a tweet, a really basic Instagram story, or an email to a listserv with 20 people on it is an effective announcement. And I think you all are smarter than that and can do better. So when you're thinking about announcing an event, this is the big hurrah. This is the ribbon cutting. This is the everybody get excited about it. And capturing that attention and then capitalizing on that helps you build through the next several states of an event, right? So then you have attracting. This is where marketing starts to come in. So if an announcement is like a ribbon cutting ceremony, you're attracting, which is kind of your second state, is when somebody leaving that ceremony gets a really cool kind of takeaway or a really well-designed postcard or even like something that's interactive in some way, shape, or form, because you want people to be excited about coming and being a part of your organization, being a part about what you're doing, and you want to woo them over. So often with the mass amounts of scrolling that we all constantly do, a lot of stuff gets lost. So where are you breaking through that noise, not only in your announcement, but in the way that you're attracting people? And this is something that I think Denison does a fascinating job of, because you all still love physical posters, and I have mad respect for that. This is one of my favorite places to talk about event design, production, all of those components. Once you've attracted, once you're wooing people to come to your event, you also need to anticipate what they're expecting and what you're able to deliver. So the example I use for this is, let's say there's a poster, we see it in the elevator Slater, and it says, hey, Thursday, there's going to be neon roller disco with a live DJ. And you're like, okay, that sounds amazing. You show up to this neon disco live DJ roller skating event, and there's a single pair of roller skates that everybody has to rotate through. The music is being played on a Beats pill that is all treble. The bass blew out on it. There's a single sad strip of LED lights, and the DJ is just somebody hitting shuffle on Spotify. If you were expecting a really cool roller rink experience, you're going to be incredibly disappointed. So taking the time within your event design, within your marketing, within your communication as you're pushing it out to really explain just exactly what your event's going to be, and then also doing some internal checks to make sure that what you're saying is going to match what you're able to execute is critical. These were the pre-event stages. Now we're going to get into the during event stages, right? Arriving. So traveling to your destination. Even during COVID, even during virtual events, this is something to think about. How many of us have logged onto a virtual event and it says, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon? Kind of boring, right? There's some really cool things out there that people are doing where you'll log in and it'll be some sort of like an interactive countdown timer in Zoom, or it'll be a really well done video that kind of starts counting down for 5 minutes and is giving a montage leading up to the event. Even outside of COVID, when you're doing this in person, think about the excitement that you have when you enter a concert, where you go through the process of scanning your ticket, and then you go in, you're passing the merch booth, there's mood lighting already going on, there's options to buy a couple things, and it's really setting the tone of the experience. So I think arriving to destination, also a key component in event and program design that a lot of us often miss. Finally, your event is starting, you're going to enter it. So while arriving is getting there, getting everything into place, getting ready, getting to like where you're essentially seated for this concert, right? Entering is when you're resetting the intention. This is something that's also really, really important to do when you're doing things that might be education-based or might be curriculum-based or might have some sort of learning outcome that you really want to do. You can borrow a little bit from me. I reset the intention of what this video is for about 4 minutes into the video. I said, here's what we're going to cover today. Here's what we're going to go over. We're going to try to do this quickly so that I'm not taking too much of your time outside of work, right? So also a critically important thing to do when you're doing an event. Reset the intention. Why are we here? What's exciting? What are we going to do? If we're using the roller disco example, this would be, all right, everybody, we're here to skate. Get those skates on and let's start going. Engagement. This is another piece that I feel like we do really well on at Denison, but I do want to take some time to talk about. I think a lot of us have gone to an event where we've walked in, it's looked awesome, everybody's having a great time. We might be a first-year student, we might not know anyone there, and we might just stand on a wall for 30 minutes and then turn around and walk away. So I always highlight engaging is a huge part of event design and production that we don't necessarily think about, because we just assume people are going to come to a concert and have a good time. People are going to come take some free food and go home. They're going to have a good time. You know, we really kind of almost look at it like a baseline. What is important is leaders within your campus organizations to think about how your campus organization wants to engage the people that made the choice to spend time with your organization and what you're doing. Whether that's small talk, whether that's having some sort of smaller activities embedded within an event for folks to be able to interact with and to get to know the other people in your organization, whether it be a form of recruitment. Really think about where people are going to engage in your event, not just show up. All right. This is one of my favorite things, and it's also one of the most interesting ones to describe. Exiting doesn't necessarily mean dropping the curtain and everybody leaving, right? The way to think about this is the encore of your favorite band that you've ever seen live, and how they come back out, they play that one song that everybody has been screaming at them to play all night long, and how you kind of have that Instagram perfect moment where everything comes together and you're elated. Think about where you're creating those moments within your events. What is the crescendo? What is the final moment that people will remember as the evening comes to an end? And, you know, it's not always going to be as dramatic as a pull the curtain back and an encore and, you know, a band's playing a second set surprise. But this is something to think about. Are you having a genuine connection and you're giving somebody, you know, a recruitment flyer as they're leaving an event that was really casual and kind of just a small pop-up? Those are the things to think about, the moments that somebody's going to remember. It's going to stick with them. And those are super important because those are what drive people to come back and want to be a part of your organization again and again and again. And then finally, I like this one, extending. This is your post-event stuff, right? So a week after, sometimes even 2 weeks after, it can make an incredible difference to reach back out to the people who were a part of your event, or to email a thank you card to somebody. Snail mail is way cooler, but I also understand that sometimes all we have is virtual options. Taking the time to recall that experience, not only with people that helped you produce that event, but the people who were your audience, also show that you're engaged on a regular basis. I like to think about this. It's dated. Don't make fun of me. I know I'm old, but time hop, right? Everybody used that. Everybody would repost it and be like, oh my gosh, remember we did this thing 2 years ago? And a few of us would get tagged in it. And of course, they'd be like, that was an incredible experience. Like, oh, I really miss so-and-so. I should reach out. All right. Thanks for your patience, folks. We had a crash, but we're back. The joys of video recording. No matter what, this computer's going to overheat. All right, so again, once you log into the my.denison.edu portal, bottom left, you've got availability and you've got reservation, right? So if you click over into availability, it will actually give you something called EMS, and you're able to click within these specific blocks and see if something's available or it's not available. You're able to search for the space that you want, any date that you want. You can really see just about anything that you're interested in. So this is a great place to stop and check in first, see if the space is available. If not, then you know to look for a backup or something else. You can also just do your reservation request directly from here. If you don't want to email Missy, you can just fill out this reservation form. It is, let's go, right there. So it'll also typically auto-populate to the campus calendar. Great way to get information out there. Another important thing on the portal that you should utilize is the work orders tab. So this is where you're going to go in. It's a product called Top Shelf or Top Desk, I believe. And then you'll submit event services request or even facility services requests. So an event request would be like, hey, I need some tables. A facilities-based request would be, hey, I need a power drop for a giant machine that we're bringing in. So depending on what you enter, folks are going to reach out and help you. We all communicate pretty constantly with one another here in Click as well as Denison overall, and we want to make sure that we're supporting your organizations to the best of our abilities. Additionally, for any AV requests, you're going to work with RedTech. They've got a great Google form that I'm going to link in the bottom. Make sure you fill it out ASAP. The sooner they know, the better. They get it on their schedule. They can make sure they got plenty of people to do it. And then you'll also want to fill out things for your propane fire pits. It's got some information there. It's important to get this in early too, just to be sure that it can be accommodated. There's only so many heaters and propane fire pits to go around, so the sooner, the better. Okay, a couple other quick things. If you want to check out your budget, it is actually located in my.denison.edu, and I'm going to include the direct link so that you can see your budgets. For supplemental funding, there's also 2 different collaboration grants I'm including in the email as well, just so that you can make sure you've got whatever you need. So when it comes time to actually spend some of your funding, this is where we can also be a resource as Click. We have an e-procurement system where you can email the folks in AP and they will help you purchase something. If you want to talk through an idea and you would rather have someone in Click be a part of it, I can also be that person for you. And that's typically like Amazon.com, shopping carts, thing like that. We can also do reimbursements, which is typically not my favorite because I don't want you all to front the money that already exists for your organizations. There's typically ways that we can find, avenues to prepay or pay for something so that you all don't have to. And then we're able to kind of take care of that so that you don't have to do a reimbursement. Again, we can of course do them, but I would like you all to keep your money for the things that you would like to do as individuals, not organizations. Then there's a thing called a PO process, which is a contract. A contract takes about 6 to 8 weeks. I say that because oftentimes there will be some back and forth in trying to make sure that we're doing things the correct way. We're meeting the risk and liability requirements from legal counsel. We're meeting the payment terms specified by the vendor. Really, the sooner you start working on money stuff, the better. This is just a super quick overview because, again, I'm here for y'all as a resource. So I'm happy to talk about a lot of this stuff more in depth. The other thing we should make sure we chat about is transitions. And I always say, have you read your Constitution to understand what your transition plan is? When do you elect your e-board? Do you have a shared drive? Do you have a shared email? These are all the 4 basics that can really help you all get to a good place so that the next group that comes into your organization isn't necessarily trying to scramble to find that one document from 3 years ago that they really need. I highly recommend, I highly recommend something similar to what UPC does, where they're an admin board. We'll make a folder that'll be for that specific academic year. And then you're able to kind of go in there and understand some of the rationales that were made, some of the decisions that were made, all of those pieces. This also takes us to the next step, which is what are best practices during COVID? And so this is just kind of the end of our presentation. It's going to be real quick. The question we should always ask ourselves is, could this be virtual? Just thinking about the health of our campus community, the ability to utilize Zoom, Google Meets. If it's something that's just a basic meeting, I do strongly encourage you all to do virtual things. However, it's not a requirement, just something to think about. Another kind of big question that a lot of folks get is, hey, I tried to reserve a room and now it's getting bounced back to Click. Yes, it's just a very standard practice. Has nothing to do with you all doing anything incorrectly. It's more so for us to work in partnership with the events and reservations office to make sure that we're doing things the best way we can. We're helping you all select appropriate venues, making sure we're advocating for the things you need in order to have a successful event. And then of course, an attendance upload. As you all have events, taking attendance is super important. Being able to, know who is at an event in the case that we do need to do some contact tracing, having you all be a part of that is a huge, huge help. This is what the attendance upload form looks like. Again, this will be included in this little email that I will send to you. And really, I just wanted to say thank you all. I know that this is a brief video. I know we went through things pretty quickly, just trying to make sure that we get that base bones information out there for those of you who could not join us in person. Thank you for putting up with the 2 different Zoom videos spliced together since we had some technological issues. And again, sincerely, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I would love to talk about your organization's hopes and dreams, no matter the size, no matter what your mission, no matter what your vision. You all are a huge part of this community, and together we can do some really incredible things. It's technically my job to be here to support you, so don't be afraid to ask for it and to make sure that you're holding me accountable. I can't wait to see what we're going to get up to next, and I know that I'll be talking to a lot of you soon.